How many times did you think that you knew the answer to only discover that you didn't even know the right question? Today we're talking to Michelle Boxx. I can guarantee you that she's going to help you find the right question. So my name is Winn, two-time Olympian, national championship basketball coach, award-winning speaker and author. And this is the podcast, Olympic Minds, Leadership Beyond Limits. This is a podcast for the people who want to move beyond their limitations, who want to go beyond mediocrity into mastery, and who want to find something beyond success and live in significance. So Michelle is a podcaster. She's a jack of all trades. This is what I love. She's a writer. And this is the thing. She's a psychic. So everybody's like, da-da-da. That's how she calls herself. I'm just telling you what she calls herself, right? She's a consultant, and she really helps businesses move beyond. So I'm gonna let Michelle tell you a little bit more about herself, and then we're gonna jump into some really great questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, my name is Michelle Boxx, and so I do personal and business development, but I do it through a few tools. I do it through a little bit of neuroscience, a little bit of intuitive skills as well. So the term psychic, I don't necessarily do it as traditionally as a lot of people would think of a psychic. I do it more from the sense of trying to get personal results or business development results, just basically using intuitive skill sets to be able to tune into what might be blocking people from moving forward in their personal or business lives, to strategize, and to also use my previous background. I used to be in politics as a political campaign manager and media as well. And so using that along with my skill set in scaling businesses too. I've helped scale businesses to multiple 6 figures and one to multiple 7. So I just help people kind of get their businesses off the ground and get started using this intuitive skill set with a mix of strategy. And of course, like I said, working on those personal development blocks and everything as well.
So let's talk about intuitive. So a lot of people go, oh, what does that mean? Like, what intuitive? It seems like something that only certain people have, and I don't believe that. I think we all have an intuitive skill.
I agree with you.
We just tend to shut it down or turn it off, or we don't believe in it. So when you say intuitive, so how do you hone those skills so that you can use them?
I look at it almost as an expansion of the 5 senses. I've taught multiple people to use their own intuitive skills. I agree with you. I think the majority of people, maybe even everyone, right? Maybe we just all shut it down a little bit, but I think most people can do it. And it's up to them how far they want to cultivate it. So I think of it as an expansion of the 5 senses. So what I tell people is when you're trying to tune into a situation, as I call it, if you're trying to think of a specific scenario, then thinking, okay, what am I sensing about this situation? What do I feel I know for sure? What do I think I might know? And then also, what am I sensing, feeling, seeing, experiencing? And then as you kind of tune into all of that, you can start to get some information from there. And that's just how you start to open it up over time.
Yeah. I think that most people don't work with it, right? So number one, they don't acknowledge it. Like, oh, that's just whatever, foo-foo or whatever they want to call it, right? And then they don't know how to access it. Like you might have an intuitive sense that something's off, for example, but that's it. That's as far as you go with it. You don't go further. I know that I was one of those people early on in my life. I'm like, that's such a bunch of crap. I don't know why people tell me. Then,
Same here.
Then I developed chronic pain, and I went to 17 different medical professionals, had every test known to mankind. They're like, we don't know. So I went to Eastern medicine, and I ended up with these people. And so the first couple times I went, I'm like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Like, I can't even believe, like, they're telling me that it's not just physical pain, it's emotional pain, it's spiritual pain, it's mental pain. I'm like, that's just the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But having said that, they freaked me out by the stuff that they knew, and they didn't have access to that medical record. For example, a guy comes by one time and he goes, oh, I mean, he's not touching me. I've not told anybody in any therapist there that I had broken a toe once. And he just looked at me and goes, oh, you broke that toe on your right foot, your big toe. And I went, like,
how do you?
And I'm like, what? And I go, well, actually they told me they didn't break it. He goes, oh, but they did. You did. And he goes, it's right here. And he went down and he pushed on that bone, and I screamed. He's like, yeah, it didn't heal right. Like, holy cow. So that was the moment I was like, okay, there's something to this. Like, there's definitely something to this. So I think that people, if they don't work on it and they haven't experienced that, like, there's no way. There was just absolutely no other way that could have happened, right? So how did you hone your skill? How did you start honing your skill Michelle, so that you're able to use that to help your clients get to higher levels?
Well, first of all, I started out on the business development consulting side, and I felt like there was some sort of missing link that I wasn't getting. Like, why was it that certain entrepreneurs, I felt like I was really helping them thrive, and I could apply a very similar formula to another business, really understand like the nuts and bolts of everything, and then yet I couldn't quite break through with that entrepreneur. I couldn't quite help them get to similar levels, and I felt like there was something I was missing. And then I went down kind of my own rabbit trail, if you will, of just kind of looking into different options, and stumbled on getting a few intuitive readings myself, just online via an app. Mm-hmm. And from that, kind of had a similar experience to you. There's just things that they knew that I'm like, how did you know that? Or things that they would just say, like, oh, this is probably likely to happen. And then it would happen. And so I would get really perplexed. Because like you, I was also a skeptic. I didn't necessarily believe in it either. And eventually, down the line, I started to think, well, this is getting kind of expensive, and I'm also very interested in this. So I started to expand and to look into it myself just as a tool for me. Mm-hmm. And then I started to have really wild breakthroughs, just neural pathway breakthroughs. I could see holes within my own thinking and my own ways I performed in day-to-day life that I had been kind of doing on autopilot, kind of through like subconscious programming and that kind of thing that we all have. Right. And I started to have these massive breakthroughs in terms of how I showed up and how I handled things. I could see things more clearly. I could see things in my personal relationships more clearly. I learned how to set better boundaries for myself, and then moved it on into business. And I decided to do a crazy little experiment to see if I actually used my intuition, could I build a six-figure business from that? And so then I went ahead and launched this, kind of company, this new extension of it, where it was still personal and business development, but now had that intuitive edge. Grew my following now to 17,000 followers on TikTok. And I just did it purely through intuition and that intuitive side, and didn't invest any money in it. And it became, a six-figure business in 1 year. So I thought, okay, there's something to this. And through that, I've now completed over 20,000 mini readings. Mini readings are 5 minutes, 10-minute reads. So now I've completed 20,000 in 3 years.
Wow.
So yes. So through that, like you said, there's been a lot of things with clients. I have a lot of repeat clients, and, just consistently calling things or seeing things that maybe they couldn't see themselves. But then also all of those reads start out as cold reads. I know nothing about the person. I don't know any details. They'll ask me one question, or sometimes they'll even say, whatever comes up for me, just tell me what you see. And that's all I've got. And I just go for it. And I've done it so many times now. And even I still get surprised by some of the random breakthroughs.
Now you're trusting it, right? You're trusting that it's going to come, and you're trusting that you can tap into the universal consciousness, or whatever you want to call it. But it's interesting because I think a lot of people have these hits. I do believe a lot of people, but they, for example, when I was a basketball coach, I would just get this knowing you need to sub in so-and-so, or you need to change your defense, or you need to change your offense, or you need to, like, it wasn't scripted. It was just like a hit. And when I did it, it was almost always right. I mean, and when I didn't do it, it's like, oh, you didn't listen to this, voice that was telling you what to do. If you just listened, you probably would have won. And even if it didn't make sense, I just started trusting it. It's like, well, okay, but this player's been playing horribly and whatever. And they're like, just put her in. Okay, put her in, Carrie, you're going in. Like, and then they go in and like nail 3 threes or something. It's like, so I think that there is, I think if you're a great athlete, I think you have this intuitive space in you that people call moxie, or they're playing in the zone. But I think if you're a really great athlete, you just know, like you start to move before the ball gets there if you're a baseball player, right? Or if you're a basketball player, you put the pass where somebody's gonna be, and they haven't even moved yet, right? You start doing those things. So I think it's out there. It's just that people haven't trusted it, or they won't name it, or they're afraid to name it. And then they miss, like they don't get, like you're helping clients through this ability to understand them at a deeper level than they know themselves. Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think even sometimes it's just helpful to have someone confirm what you're already sensing, but haven't been able to put into words. Kind of like what you're talking about. You're like, I think this is the right call, and I don't know why it's the right call, but let's go for it and see what happens. But yes, I think that's really interesting about the athletic side of it as well. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, but they wouldn't call it that, right? But they feel it. They feel it, before it happens. And and then not everybody, not every player that I coached had it, right? Not everybody had it. I think they just hadn't developed it. So if I look back and I think about people who were better at that, they just had I think they did more self-reflection. They were kind of into, why do I feel this way? They were doing some self-reflection, they were doing some questioning, they were doing some mindfulness, which I think is kind of the beginning, and maybe you're different, but maybe the beginning point of all this is you start questioning and searching.
Absolutely. I think the questioning and searching is part of it. But the one thing that I think is really interesting too, for me, is even though I will call myself a psychic because that's the frame of mind that we put these kinds of things in, right? But at the same time, I'm not at all convinced of where any of this comes from. And so for me, it's not very woo. For me, it's very much what are our brains capable of doing? Mm-hmm. So I think that that's been interesting as well. So I agree with you with the searching side of things. I think that that's a very normal part of kind of going down this path. It's okay, I'm sensing there's something more, or there's a life problem you're trying to solve and you haven't been able to just get to the root of it. Right. Your health journey. But I also am not at all convinced exactly where it all comes from. I think, of course, it's easy for all of us to frame things of exactly what it is or where something is, but we don't actually know. Maybe this is just a function of our brains that we're not, fully exploring yet. And I find it fascinating to read any books on brain scans and that kind of thing that they have done on intuitives, but it's very interesting stuff.
I do think some people are born with more of a capacity than others, right? So some people are born with this capacity, or some people have had a traumatic experience that moves them into that thing. And then I've seen others like you who just said, I just want to learn more about this. I just want to open my mind to the possibility that exists and that I can learn to do more of this. And so I think there's different ways to kind of get into to access it, to be accessible to you. But it is accessible to everybody. I think just when I coach a client, my first thing is I want them to know themselves. And probably I know, there's not a lot of people who really know themselves.
Self-deception is very real, right? I think we all have self-deception. I think, learning the self-awareness, and also how even if you intend for your actions to not hurt or affect someone negatively, that it still can. And there's just so many layers to it, right? And so I think we all like to also be the heroes of our own story.
Yes.
Yes.
Either the heroes or the villains.
Yes.
I think that there are people who will let themselves be the villain because in their mind, they play to guilt because guilt feels good to them.
Okay. Yes. Like that victimization side of things. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
But we do create our own stories, right? I mean, it's crazy the stories that we create in our mind. And then those stories, once we create them, they're not just a story anymore.
Mm-hmm. It's our reality, right? So yeah, it's so interesting. And I also, to go back to this real quick, really love what you said about people have different capacity for it. I think of it a lot, explain it a lot to people like athletic ability. Maybe some people are, innately born with a bit more athletic ability than others. Mm-hmm. And it's just about cultivating and developing and everything from there too. So.
Absolutely. I think that there's people who, I used to think that, just certain people were born to be artists. And then I learned that people could learn to be an artist. And I think that same thing about people who were, singers and people who played musical instruments. Certainly there's certain people who gravitate easier to that, but there's other people who just learned it through repetition and through practice and through the open-mindedness that they could do it. Because if you don't think you could do it, there's no possibility of getting there, right? So if you have a client, and what kind of questions do you ask them to help them start unlocking maybe some of the things that they know, but they don't know they know?
Well, and it's interesting because I don't typically ask my clients a lot of questions, at least not initially. Instead, a lot of what I'm doing is I'm letting them ask me questions and saying, hey, why is this happening? And a lot of times the starting point for a lot of my clients is some sort of pain point. So if they're coming to me in regards to, love relationships, why isn't this person showing up as certain? Does this person care about me? And, working through things in that direction, right? So we're able to say, hey, like, here's the layers of what's happening there on this person's side. And then also here are the layers that are happening on your side, that where these boundaries don't exist and where these kinds of things are. And I make it really clear that everyone's emotional world is their emotional world. I'm not there to like push this onto anyone. I'm just telling people what I'm personally seeing or what I'm experiencing while tuning into it. And then from there, we go ahead and, continue to process over time. A lot of my sessions, like I said, are mini sessions. I do 60-minute ones as well, but a lot of them are those 5 to 10-minute hits. And so that's what really helps with that neural pathway rewiring over time is we're working through these same issues. Maybe they're asking the same questions over and over again, right? But each time there's like progress, and each time we're slowly working on their side of things as well, to help them develop their own either resilience or healing or breakthroughs in regards to business, whatever it might be.
I think it's important what you just said. They ask the same question over and over again because it hasn't yet happened, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's a movement. You might have experienced a small movement, but it hasn't moved the needle to where you want it to go. And so a lot of times it explains to me like it's like peeling off the layer of an onion. And there's something underneath that, and there's something underneath that, and there's something underneath that. And certainly I think that there's, our lifetime of experiences, but then, we also take on stuff from our family. Oh, right? We take on, and it's not, I think it's interesting to me because now at this point in my lifetime when I am able to look at my parents differently. So I think we go through a period of, number one, we adore them, we put them on pedestals, and then we start the judgment phase for a while. And then we get to the place where we can remove ourselves from our parents. And then we start with the curiosity phase, like, that's interesting. They say that or do that or whatever. So now I sit in curiosity and I listen to them. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's why I do that. That's why I say that. That's why I show up that way, right? I mean, it's really interesting to me that it's the layers. And so when a client comes to you and you start with something, it's the peeling off of the first layer, but there's so many things that are added to that. And if you can get to that final, I mean, it doesn't have to go all the way to the bottom either. I don't think so. Maybe you do. It doesn't have to get to the very, 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 very beginning of the root cause. It just has to get through enough of them that they're like, okay, I'm done with it. Is that what you found?
I mean, it kind of varies on the client, but I love how you explained it. There is a lot of us like going all the way back, right? Like all of a sudden, like, okay, wait, there's like, and I don't always have to name the event that happened, but let's figure out the subconscious belief behind this. But let's figure that level out. So yeah, I'm really, really big about the subconscious reprogramming. I don't believe our lives are truly our own if we haven't done the true work to understand our subconscious minds and decisions that we default into making. And so that's a big part of my work, is helping people break through those layers. So yes, peeling back each layer. And yeah, you're right. Sometimes you don't have to go all the way down. And sometimes you do. And it just really depends on the situation. But attachment styles too play a huge role, and something I'm really passionate about talking about as well. I think it's incredibly helpful to understand what we are oriented to, and for also people to understand that they're not alone in any of these things that they're experiencing, right? There's a lot of ways we get to certain subconscious beliefs, and they may be different or different life experiences, but there's a lot of repetitive subconscious beliefs out there. And so we're just peeling that back over time.
Yes. And sometimes it's decades of that same belief. Mm-hmm. And so now it's so ingrained in your neural networks that, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. So, and it's that subconscious beliefs, the subconscious programming that we're seeing the world as. I mean, we could take a simple thing, and I'm not going to dig into politics. I'm just saying that, the Republicans and the Democrats, they will see an event, but yet they interpret it totally different, right? And the reason they interpret it differently is not because they're good or bad people. Is because their subconscious programming is now into that event, right? Because I think most people are basically good. That's my belief system, and I want to believe that. I think people are basically good, but their programming makes them see life in a certain way, right? So you talked about helping them, like literally, you're not going to change unless you reprogram your mind. There's just you can't like reprogram your brain. Because as long as your brain is programming in that same program, you're going to experience the same result. You don't get what you want, you get who you are. To get what you want, you have to change who you are. So how do you get to that deeper subconscious belief? And then once you get there, how do you help them to learn to reprogram it? Because you just don't go, oh, found it, done. That's not how it is. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. So it's interesting because I think, first of all, within my work, right, when you're hearing about people's relationships or you're hearing about their business struggles, it would be really, really easy to just shout at them and be like, break up with the guy, or or like go ahead and be more disciplined, right? And I think that that's where a lot of kind of advice has fallen short now for several decades for a lot of people, right? And so what we're really looking at is, I don't really care as much about what people are facing in terms of like the actual scenario itself. Like I said, I care about those layers underneath. So what happens over time is the person is asking the same question, over and over and over, right? Like, how does this person feel about me? Or why is my business not succeeding in this way? And so we keep on peeling back those layers. And what happens as we do that is, one, I deeply believe in the power of empathy and meeting people exactly where they're at. And that means with a lot of love and grace and patience, and like however long we need to harp on the same topic, we will harp on it. Right. But each time, let's get a little bit deeper. Each time, let's talk a little bit more. Let's start to notice, how we're being treated, and would boundaries serve us better? What would feel better? Because clearly you're not happy if you're focusing on these issues. Like, how can we feel better? How can we feel more, like, what would be a better emotion? What are our value systems? What kind of emotions do we want to live our lives by? And so we just start to talk about those things over time. And it's all, frankly, really slow. I feel like a lot of my clients, some of these changes, it's like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. But what's been really incredible is when the breakthrough for them kind of happens, it's all of a sudden like it just clicks into place, which I don't know if that's a neural pathway or what exactly it is in that moment. But when it finally clicks, it's amazing the change that has transformed them. It's like all of a sudden they can let go of that relationship. All of a sudden they can move forward in their businesses. So a lot of it is just kind of through these mini reads, we're slowly building a new neural pathway over time. And then the other thing too is I really am a big fan of subliminals. So there's so many great ones on YouTube, and being able to listen to those at night to kind of rewire their neural pathway on whatever topic we're working on as well.
I love that, the subliminal, like, messages that you don't even know they're coming. You can go to sleep with that going on, and then you wake up you don't really wake up a different person, but you do. I mean, everything that you're doing to change, the old you is evolving a new you. And it's not there may be some people who just do it like that. I know my transformation took a long time, a very long time. And I still work on stuff. I mean, it's not, I don't think that we're ever done in this lifetime. I think when we're done this lifetime, we're done with this lifetime, right? We're literally like, okay, see you, we're done, bye. We're going to, whatever that next level is, we're done here. But I think for me, Michelle, it's about, they literally have to get to it. What is the belief? And I think this is what you're saying. What is the belief that is causing them to experience what they're experiencing? And once they find that belief, they've got to be willing to change that belief, but for me, it came even deeper. And so the depth of that was kind of like we were talking earlier about, these people who could read my body or read whatever was going on and they were like, hey, this is what's going on in your body. And I'm like, how do you know this? This is crazy. They're crazy. They're witches. They're whatever. And then trusting that was literally something that people could do. Like, I had to get to the place of trusting that. Because the first time I went in, I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, it's just dumb. And then when I experienced again and again the knowledge they had about me that they didn't know. I mean, there's no possible way. It wasn't written down anywhere. It wasn't like in my charts. It wasn't exchanged information. Nobody had asked me about it. And they would go, oh, you broke your nose. Yes, I did. Well, man, you really messed it up. Yes, I did. Like, I mean, and so, but that crazy stuff, I had to get to the place of believing that they knew that or they could access that. There's a lot of people still that would say, oh, you were taken, like they knew something or they had looked at it. There's no way you could find that information. There's just no way you could find that information. But you have to get to the belief that something like that is possible, like the belief that what you're accessing is possible. People don't come to you who don't believe that you can access it because it would be too far of a leap for them, right?
Right. So not always. The interesting thing is because I do TikTok live streams, you get like anybody and everybody kind of popping into there. And, it's a pretty low price point for like in the grand scheme of things for a 5-minute or a 10-minute. It's $20 for 5 minutes, $40 for 10 minutes, right? And so people are able to just randomly send in their payment, and they'll be like, oh, like this silly girl, like whatever she's doing over here. And so they can say something like general or whatever. And it's been so fascinating because people you would not expect or you would not think, that just very much skeptics will come in and they'll be like, okay, like she's gonna mess this up, but whatever, this will be like funny. And then I'll call it, and suddenly they become regular clients. And it's happened multiple times. For example, a lot of, there's been like multiple people who are maybe like in their, like, I would say like, just very manly men that are like 60s and 70s. And they are now regularly seeing me for like career advice and that kind of thing through Intuitive Lens, that work for some really impressive companies. And they simply did it because they saw me on TikTok one time. And so that kind of stuff just happens.
They came in, like they came and said, I'm going to prove that she's a liar. I'm going to prove that she's wrong.
Right.
It cost me $20. I'll make a fool out of her. Right. But because it's live, then they're able to see that that's not the case. It's crazy.
An account that is not, there's no pictures of them on it. I don't look at people's accounts anyway, but I don't even have like a little headshot of them. I have no image of them. I have no idea who these people are. It's a complete cold read. And they'll be like, whatever you can tell me. And then I'll just start telling them things about their lives and whatever. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait. So that's typically how.
No, I don't really want you to say that on live at all.
Yeah.
That's hysterical. I love it. And so once they kind of get hooked, it's kind of like they go, well, you do know things and you can help me. Like you said, they become clients. So explain to me kind of like the process. How long do they stay a client? And are you still doing the minis? Like every time you meet with a client, you're still doing a mini. You're not ever doing like not ever, but most of what you do is just this mini short thing. They come in, you do a reading, and they exit. And the next time they come in, they've got a realization, or they've got something that they've, something a little bit different or a different aspect of it. You just keep doing this over time?
So I have 30-minute and 60-minute sessions as well that I'm doing. So I do a few of those a day in addition to these little minis that I talk about. And so it's just kind of a mix. And then I also have bigger packages now, business-wise, that people can purchase, where they just get a slew of Zoom sessions with me where we work on things.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the whole process, I have a lot of people that have been here with me since year one, and we're still going, because it's been 3 years now. So a lot of my people stick around, and I have a lot of people that are getting reads from me every single day. I have people who are getting, private sessions with me every single week. And so it's a lot of repeat business. But again, I think that's partially because the work that we're doing is repetitive, right? And we're building new things over time together. So it's been really fun.
I wish I could say that I'm never ever a victim anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a victim is somebody who blames outside events, other people or circumstances for why they are who they are, right? So, and I know what a victim is, and I know that doesn't promote me from going further. Like I get all that, right? I know if you take responsibility for your own actions, then you can change whatever. And then I'll be at a pity party one day, and I'll be like, oh, I'm doing that thing. Like I'm doing it, right? I'm doing it again. I'm able to take myself out of it, but sometimes I get lost in it for 5 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, rarely longer than 15 or 20. Like usually I'm like, wow, like this is crazy. This is stupid. This is not helping you. You know that this doesn't help anything. It's not going to change the outcome. It's just going to make you feel bad, and I can talk myself out of it. But it's still there, right? And so you keep saying, why is it still there? I've worked on this for decades, or I've worked on this for a long time. And we get, I think it's the human experience. First of all, what we came to experience is these things that we came to overcome. And so there's these lessons that go on, and they're not meant to hurt us. They're just meant to help us elevate or be more enlightened, or whatever you want to call it. So is there a theme? Is there a theme that you have that comes at it comes at to you regularly? I can't say regularly. That sounds even worse. Is there a theme that you experience that you're like, oh, and I don't mean like for one person, I mean like overall, are there a couple of 2 or 3 things that come back again and again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, love is massive, like love and that sense of belonging, and then also income, and how to, generate income, and how to, building businesses or side hustles or that sort of thing. Those 2, I would say, are my main, people that come in. And, it's interesting I find the concept of love so fascinating because it affects, of course, all of us, and just the wide array. I mean, I have clients all over the world. I have clients of all different age ranges, different genders, and everything else. And just to have these people come in and talk about love, and it's just the same things that come up, over and over and over again. These familiar topics, right? It is truly so fascinating to see how it affects all of us, and that no one ever outgrows this this core human need, right? So,
yeah, nobody outgrows. I mean, there are topics. One of the topics that I get as a coach is this lack of self-worth, this unworthiness theme. That seems to come through a lot of my clients that I deal with, right? And it's just, and they don't know. Some of them don't know. I mean, some of them do, but some of them don't. But a lot of them will say, well, I have the imposter syndrome. I'm like you and everybody else in the world. So let's just, right? I mean, you don't get to claim it as your own. Like, this is something that all of us get to experience, because I think that most people, when you go into something new, we question ourselves. Like, can I do this? This is hard. I think I'm faking it. I don't think people are going to figure out that I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I think this is a common theme, but a lot of people at their base just don't think that they're good enough. They just don't believe that. And maybe that affects their ability to love. I would think that it would affect your ability to love. So when I think about that, I think about my mom. So my mom is my greatest mentor. She's my greatest teacher, because I have to remind myself of that. It's not what she did to me, it's what she did for me, right? I have to remind myself of that daily. But I think about what she thinks love is, right, versus what I think love is. And so for her, it's about me validating her. That would be what she would term love. And so she's never felt love because she's always looking for it to be external rather than internal. Do you find that's a common thing for people?
Well, I think it's not just the ability to give love, it's the ability to receive love. And to hold love, and to hold, like you said, your sense of self, and not have it be so malleable. And I think that many people, I think, struggle with that. And a sense of, my worth is truly based on how people on the outside view me. But we don't realize that we're creating so much slipping and sliding in quicksand for ourselves, and an absolute sense of never feeling safe and never feeling quite okay. And so we can get so triggered within our relationships, and we can get so, many of them, right? Romantic or otherwise. And so I think that sense of getting triggered is very real. And sometimes we like to blame it on the other person and say, well, if you just showed up this way, or if you just gave me this, or if you just did this. And what we're not understanding is that a human being is a moving, breathing thing. A relationship, because it involves two human beings, is a moving, breathing thing as well. Like a living thing, it's moving constantly, it ebbs and flows. And so if your emotions and your sense of self and your sense of worth and love is only dependent on which way something moves, then you are always going to be moving with it. And that's going to feel like you don't have control over your own life and over your own sense of self. And that becomes incredibly precarious. So, yes.
Yeah, that's a really tough place to be, right? And I think a lot of people don't know self-love and don't understand that to know love, you have to love yourself first. And then you're not looking for anything from anybody. You're just now experiencing, you're just now sharing. And then you don't get mad at them for doing things because you're not dependent on them to make you happy. You're not looking at them to fulfill any part of you. You're just experiencing kind of alongside. It doesn't mean you're not experiencing together, but you're not dependent on that person to, you said this, now you don't love me, or you said this, you hurt my feelings, or you said this. It's like, why? But that's the process for me, is about self-love. When you get the self-love, then everything else is easy to navigate. You don't have to get mad or upset or whatever because somebody else doesn't feel the role that you think they ought to feel for you.
I think it's huge. I think that was a big part for me too, in terms of when I started to dive into all of this work for myself before I was reading for anybody else. That's a lot of what I was uncovering, a lot of what I was working on for myself, and starting to realize, oh, wait a second, like I've been the one that's been very like slipping and sliding and malleable, right, based on like how people, love me, or whether they stay, or whether they show up or a certain way. And so I had to really work on that within myself and provide that love for myself. And it was such a game changer. And so, yes, that's a huge topic with my clients as well.
Yeah, it's a game changer. Mm-hmm. You know, I spent the Christmas holidays alone, and it was my choice. Like I definitely, I didn't want to go. I just wanted to stay here. And I had my mother who was like, oh my gosh, it's so horrible. I go, why? Yes. But she confuses loneliness with being alone. I go, I'm not lonely at all. Like I'm perfectly okay. You know, yes. I have my dogs here, I have the cats here, I've got lots of space around me. I can go for a walk, I can do what I want to do, you know, and I'm perfectly okay. But for her, it was like, it's horrible. She couldn't imagine being by herself over Christmas. I'm like, yeah, no, it's perfect. But see, there's people who because they fall into the belief system that you should be with people, that that you need people. And I'm not saying I don't want people, but there's a difference between needing. And I used to be a person who needed somebody else to like me, who needed somebody else to love me, who needed somebody else to validate me. And so that was a big journey for me as well. So Michelle, well, tell people, like, how can they find you? I know you said TikTok. So, what do you go by on TikTok? When are you usually there? When are your live sessions so that people know how to reach you?
So on TikTok, you can search Blonde Fixer Strategy, and you can find me there. And then I do live streams fairly regularly, almost every day. And then also Instagram is a great place to find me as well. People want to just message me and get more details about how everything works, or even just if it's easier to find the link. My Instagram is The Blonde Fixer. There are a lot of people impersonating me on TikTok, unfortunately. So be careful. So
you're looking at her face right now. You can see her. You know who she is.
Yes.
You know what she's going to do.
They're taking my content, unfortunately, and posting it. There's not a good way on TikTok as of right now to stop it. So just be careful. Make sure it's me. And then if not, always follow me on Instagram, and I can also send a link over to people as well.
Yeah, I had a client who had 500,000 followers on TikTok, and she got ripped off, and so she left the platform. Yeah, somebody else stole her stuff, and she wasn't able to get it back. So I don't know how you navigate that, but just a warning. Anyway, this was delightful. As always, I'm just so intrigued by what you do and how you help people, and that you can see that she's real, that this is not some sort of, like under the table, like hat trick. This is truly something that she cultivated. And for other people, like if you want to cultivate this, there are lots of, I think, online things that you can go to, or people that will help you cultivate your intuition, your intuitive hits, your ability to know more about yourself, your ability to feel more. It is just like any other skill set. It's something you work at. But Michelle, I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the energy you bring to this world. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being in this world. We need people like you who are just bringing the good, loving energy that's getting out into the world right now. So folks, listen, go visit her on The Blonde, right? The Blonde Fixer on Instagram, and Blonde Fixer Strategy on TikTok. Go visit her. Get out your $20. Get out your $40. See that she's real, right? Try to prove her wrong. If you're a skeptic, try to prove her wrong and see what happens. And maybe you'll become a client. So this is absolutely marvelous. People. If you love this, please share, subscribe to hear more intriguing conversations with people like Michelle Boxx, who I am so fond of. Thank you, Michelle. You're awesome.